Hi everyone, Peter here from Movement and Performance, and in this presentation we're going to be covering the contributing factors to sprint performance and the underlying qualities which underpin sprinting and speed. So before we get into the underlying qualities, we need to first understand the difference between acceleration and maximum velocity. So when we talk about acceleration, we're referring to going to a point of low or no momentum and then basically gaining speed and traveling faster and faster. So this can be from no momentum, so we're stationary, not moving, or low momentum, so we're not at top speed or we're not at a higher velocity, but we are then gaining velocity. So acceleration is going to be characterized by slower ground contact time. So each step that we take on the ground, our foot will be in contact with the ground for longer during the acceleration phase than the maximum velocity sprinting. And because we have longer contacts on the ground, we have more potential to use muscular force to propel ourselves. So each contraction is going to be much slower because we have no momentum. And therefore, as I just mentioned, we have a greater requirement for muscular force production. That's going to allow us to drive ourselves forward with each step, and it's going to be much more required during the acceleration than it will be at maximum velocity. So maximum velocity is slightly different to acceleration in that we're talking about when we're at top speed, basically, so the fastest speed which we can potentially run at. And maximum velocity is different in that it's characterized by faster ground contact times. So when we're at top speed, we have very high momentum and we're traveling at high velocity, and each step on the ground is very fast, and therefore each muscular contraction we perform is going to be a lot faster. And also maximum velocity is going to have a lot more involvement of reactive strength to actually propel ourselves, as opposed to all brute muscular force. There's going to be a lot more of this elastic qualities that are going to contribute to maximum velocity performance. So we have this sort of spectrum here. Acceleration on this end, where we have more force requirements and slower contraction speeds, and then maximum velocity here, where we have faster contraction speeds and therefore more reactive strength requirements. So when we talk about acceleration, the underlying qualities that are going to lead to successful acceleration are going to be, first of all, technique. As with any movement, especially and sprinting included, we need to make sure we have our technique on point, because even if we have all these other stuff, if we can't actually produce the force in the right directions and with the right mechanics, then we're never going to reach our full potential. So we're not going to be talking about acceleration technique in this presentation, but just understand that technique's a very important part. So in terms of physical requirements, maximum dynamic strength is going to play a big role. And when I talk about maximum dynamic strength, I'm referring to actually not isometric. So we're actually, the muscle is actually lengthening and shortening during the contraction. So that's going to play a big role, especially in the lower body. And then also slow power production. So basically producing as much force and as fast as possible, but at slower velocities. So if we think about a practical example of this, if we think of a medicine ball throw, we can use a really heavy medicine ball, and we can still try and propel it as far and with as much force as possible, but because it's very heavy, it's going to inevitably move slower. But that's the type of force that's going to be required, the type of power that's going to be required with acceleration. Since we have no momentum, we need to use muscular force for those initial first few steps to accelerate us. And then when we're talking about maximum velocity, again, technique, one of the most important things here. So always keep that into consideration. And then in terms of physical qualities, the utilization of the stretch shortening cycle is going to be very important at maximum velocity, because each ground contact is so short. The the muscles simply don't have enough time to produce that much force. So the elastic qualities, especially of the Achilles tendon, are going to be really important to get some good elastic potential out of those elastic qualities. And then eccentric strength is going to be play a big part in maximum velocity sprinting, because each step the body has to, in a very, very short amount of time, before it can actually propel for the next step, it needs to absorb that force needs to absorb the force of the body and with that velocity it's traveling at. So it's going to have high requirements of eccentric strength. And lastly, fast power, so being able to produce as much force as possible at very high velocities. So if we think back to that medicine ball example, if we do the same throw with the medicine ball, but we use a very light medicine ball, we need to be able to produce that force a lot faster, because the medicine ball's lighter, and in order to propel it as far as we can, we need to be able to rapidly produce force as opposed to slowly throwing it. So we need to actually be able to produce that force as fast as possible, otherwise the medicine ball's not going to travel very far. And a similar idea is apparent with maximum velocity sprinting. So that's it for this presentation, guys. Hopefully it was somewhat helpful. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, you can follow Movement and Performance on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also subscribe on YouTube if you want to see more of this informative content. So on Facebook and Instagram, you'll find these research infographics, and these are basically the latest research in sports performance training, and they're summarized into these easy to understand pictures so that you can stay up to date with the latest research in athletic performance training. So thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you got something out of it.